Petersburg. But the message from this Egyptian operations room set up to determine the cause of the crash is that it's far too soon to know what happened. 50 ambulances have been dispatched to the crash site to offer medical care for any survivors. A Russian team of investigators is now on its way. One report says the pilot of the Airbus A321 had asked to land early at El Arish airport in northern Sinai. Experts who've tracked the flight say it seems to have lost height dramatically.
We could see that the flight took off from Sharm el-Sheikh and it was climbing quite normally, and after about 23 minutes it suddenly started to lose speed, and then it suddenly started to drop very fast, and after about 20 seconds we lost the signal from this aircraft.
The plane was carrying holidaymakers from Sharm el-Sheikh, a popular destination for Russian tourists in search of sun. There will inevitably be speculation about whether foul play was behind the crash, especially since the wreckage was found in an area where Egyptian forces are currently fighting an Islamic militant insurgency. Back at St. Petersburg, an emergency support centre has been set up so that information about the 224 people on board can be conveyed as quickly as possible to the relatives. In the meantime, President Putin has declared Sunday an official day of mourning. Naomi Grimley, BBC News.
So we could see that the flight took off from Sharm el-Sheikh and it was climbing quite normally, and after about 23 minutes when it passed 30,000 feet it suddenly started to lose speed. So the speed went down from about 400 knots down to 62 knots. And then it suddenly started to drop very fast. And after about 20 seconds, we lost the signal from this aircraft.
Is there any way, I don't know whether you can piece together what then your conclusion might be as to what might have happened?
Yeah, it looks like the drop of speed indicates some kind of stall, speed problem. The vertical speed from the transponders indicating very fast up and down speeds, which is very unusual. It's hard to say at this point why this happened, but for sure it lost a lot of speed.
And we've had reports. Again, all of this is still to be confirmed, but from the Russian embassy in Cairo saying that the pilot was attempting to land at another airport. So that would be presumably consistent with what you found if there was some kind of technical fault. They decided they better try and land. Yes, but
the very sudden drop of speed and altitude indicates that this is something more than sudden than a planned diversion. This was something happening very, very fast.
There is a commission formed that will be heading now to Egypt under control of Minister of Transport, Minister Maxim Sokolov, and the investigative committee has already opened proceedings against the Kogalim Avia, the airliner, and because of the violations of proceedings and preparations before the flight, there was an information from the Russian RIA Novosti agency that the pilots and the team of the crew they have been reporting some technical problems during the week, and so maybe they were causing this tragedy. And we already know that the team has reached the airport and the traffic control, and they said that they're having technical problems and they wanted to land on the nearby airport, but finally they didn't do it. So of course there will be big proceedings and an investigation.
And I understand that President Putin has sent his condolences to the families, but the working assumption then is that this may have been some kind of technical fault on the plane. Is that what people are at least assuming at this stage?
Yeah, sure. Mostly people think about this issue, although there were no problems with this company, Kogalim Avia, earlier, not such big problems, yes. And of course, somebody could think about militants who fight there with ISIS and the allies of ISIS in the Sinai Peninsula. But as experts say already, there is no opportunity that their weapons would have a range to shoot this plane. So mostly people think about technical problems for now. And of course people say about the problem because there is it's Egypt where people were coming from, and it's a popular destination for Russian tourists every year. So of course it will be a big issue here in Russia.
At the moment there are two investigative teams, one by the Egyptian prosecution and another by the Civil Aviation Ministry, and both are working, coordinating with the cabinet, which has an operation room to look into the incident. Shortly they announced that the black box of the plane has been found, and this is expected to give us more details about what exactly happened. But let me echo what my colleague just said, is that the plane was flying over 31,000 feet, which means that it was out of range for any possible attack. People are speaking mainly about a technical fault within the plane, as it was given clearance from the airport after flying out by about 20 minutes. The captain asked for an emergency landing in Al Arish airport, and he didn't make it to there, unfortunately. The plane crashed 50 kilometers away from the airport, and at the moment the majority of the bodies has been found, more than 100, spread over an area of over 2 square kilometers, quite a wide area. The military is working in that area in order to clear the debris, to find the bodies, and also find the black box, which they just did. But so far the main topic, or the main line, is that there was a technical fault by the plane, and we're going to know more details after they analyze the components of the black box.
224 people on board, 17 children, we understand, and we understand that the vast majority of them were, if not all of them, Russian tourists. Sharm el-Sheikh is an extremely popular winter sun resort for people here in Russia. This was a flight to St. Petersburg, Russia's second city, and so, as I say, it's thought that the vast majority were tourists on board the plane. President Putin has ordered an official investigation to begin immediately. Russian prosecutors are said to be preparing to fly to Egypt to take part or to contribute to that investigation to find out exactly what happened on board. There were very confusing and conflicting reports this morning as news started to come in that the plane had disappeared from radar screens, that contact had been lost with the crew. Initially there was a report that the crew had made contact then with Turkish air authorities. Then that was of course disproved, and in fact the Russian civil aviation authorities here are saying that the plane lost contact some 23 minutes after taking off from Sharm el-Sheikh, and that no contact with the crew was then re-established. So big questions over what happened, but at the moment, as I say, condolences from President Putin. Relatives, of course, in St. Petersburg Airport, Pulkovo Airport, where the plane should have landed an hour ago, and of course that didn't happen.
But what we can say with certainty now from Egyptian officials is that the wreckage has been found in an area of central Sinai. This was a passenger aircraft, a civilian aircraft. It took off this morning from the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh just before 6 a.m. local time. There were 217 passengers on board and 7 crew. Now the aircraft, which was an A321 Airbus, was due to make contact with air traffic control about 20 minutes after takeoff. It didn't do that, and the alarm was raised. The Egyptian Prime Minister Ismail Sharif has called an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss what has happened. Egyptian officials are telling us they have sent or tried to send 45 ambulances to the scene. Now we're told that the wreckage has been found in a mountainous area of central Sinai. Weather conditions are said to have been poor. That will certainly be causing difficulties for any attempt at search and rescue, but I think at this stage certainly there have to be very, very few hopes of finding survivors alive. But but the authorities are saying if there are any survivors of this crash, they will be brought to Cairo along with the bodies of the dead. Now, at this early stage, we don't have any indication of the cause of this disaster. Obviously, there will be speculation about mechanical failure. We have been told by one aviation source here that the aircraft was flying at an altitude where it could not have been struck by anything from the ground, although we don't yet have confirmation of that. I think there will be speculation inevitably about militant involvement. The Sinai province has a very active militant presence. There are local jihadis who have allied themselves with Islamic State. They refer to themselves as the Sinai province of Islamic State, and they have carried out audacious attacks in the past, including one using a surface-to-air missile. But I should stress they have tended to concentrate on security targets, on police and army in the area, and at this stage there is no suggestion of involvement by them in this incident.